I'm in a new season of life. New blessings, new growth, new opportunity, and a lot less time to dedicate to training. My schedule's changed and priorities have certainly shifted. And whether I like it or not, my training has to change too. For a long time, I didn't adjust. I just tried to push through it, train the same way no matter what was going on in my life. And yeah, that works for a little bit until it catches up with you. Start feeling flat, run down, and progress stalls. After over a decade in strength conditioning, working with military, D1, and professional athletes, and a lot of trial and error along the way, one thing's always been true. Training has to match the season you're in. In this video, I'll show you how I'm adjusting my training now so you can stay consistent and keep progressing no matter what life looks like for you. So this is something I am having to figure out in real time, stepping into a new season of life as a new father. It's the biggest blessing of my life, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Obviously, as many of you know, if you are fathers, this does impact your training and schedule quite a bit. So this is near and dear to my heart right now, and why I really want to come on here and share information that I have picked up through over a decade in the field as a strength and conditioning coach, but also learning the hard way with myself with periods of overtraining, really unhealthy relationships with training in the past, where I know just seeing this field of hybrid athletes and ultra marathons and marathons, watching these people on Instagram or YouTube and looking up to them, it can put this pressure on ourselves to perform or train as much as they are, and not realizing that there's so many different variables that go into someone's current training status or training age, we like to say, where it's hard to displace yourself from what you see on social media and understand that your level of training might need to look a little bit different to get you to where they are. So most people try to train the exact same way all year long. If you're training for an ultra marathon or a marathon or a high rocks event, you most likely or hopefully have some sort of a build up and a progression to that event, and then some sort of back off or recovery period. However, I feel like the hybrid space and more traditionally the CrossFit space was trying to be good or above average at everything all at once, which really is the goal, especially for someone like myself. I don't really put myself in a bucket of like an ultra marathoner, a high rocks athlete. I used to enjoy competing in CrossFit, but I don't do that anymore. So I want to be strong. I want to be muscular. I want to be somewhat lean, which I think a lot of people can relate to, and also, live a long time and live a great life and have more functional lifespan towards the end of my life. So when you fall into this bucket without an exact training event on the calendar, it can be difficult to periodize your training because you're not actually training for an event. So most people are just going to do the same thing over and over and over again, or try to slowly increase mileage, or try to get a little bit faster, or think it's very easy to get lost in this randomness. And as I like to say, random training gets random results. So having some sort of a progression and idea of working through phases throughout the year, regardless if you're training for an event, is going to be more beneficial than just training the same exact way, trying to be pretty mediocre at everything all at once. So trying to raise the floor that we'll fall back to is the best way to go about it. So periodizing your training for strength, for hypertrophy, for endurance, for speed, things of that nature, throughout the year will actually yield better all-around results than just trying to do all of them all at once. This is because our body really doesn't like to be pulled into a bunch of different training qualities all at once. So getting really good at long distance running is not a great way to lift maximal weight and exert maximal force. So it seems pretty obvious. There are people that can get away with this, whether it's just their genetics, their training history, or their pharmaceutical use, where they can do all of this at once and really succeed at a high level. And I think it's making people such as myself 10 years ago believe that this is possible to do to a maximal extent, and it just isn't from a physiological standpoint. This isn't excuses or a lack of hard work. It's just intelligent training will get you there much quicker than just hammering down every single day. Although I do love and think that's super inspiring, I just think it's really horrible training advice for the large majority of people. And they'll end up with overuse injuries, losing muscle mass, just overall feeling like shit. And because I've been there personally, so it does frustrate me to see that's touted as such an honorable thing, and that's basically all you have to do is just work harder. And it's, for the large majority, is just not what needs to be done. It needs to be a slow, linear progression with taking into account all of these life variables and auto-regulating as we go to optimize our training and our life. So I'll dive a little bit deeper into how we looked at this in a sports performance, strength and conditioning manner with athletes, military populations. We'll break that down, how they look at their seasons. There's no better population to look at than professional athletes or Division I athletes on how they periodize their training to optimize their performance in their sport. So it's no different. We're all human bodies. We can all treat our training the same. It might look a little bit different, but this is going to be the most optimal way to do it. Okay, so personally, right now, what I'm doing with my training is, ever since my 40 miler, I don't know if you're watching this now and you haven't seen my 40 mile solo ultra video, go watch that and it'll make a little bit more sense. But basically, since my 40 mile ultra I did about a month ago, I have ran maybe twice of an accumulation of maybe 6-7 miles total. Depending on what's going on in your life, you're gonna sometimes have to drop or change your training. So again, personally, I haven't ran. The reason behind this is my sleep, stress, and everything going on in my life not only is chewing up time, it's increasing my stress on a daily basis, which I don't want to dig myself any deeper going out and doing long endurance training. And the reason for this is endurance training is a huge energy drain on the body. You get great physiological adaptations from endurance training. However, with that energy demand, stress hormones are going to increase a little bit more rapidly than other forms of training. It's going to place a higher demand on your thyroid. So basically, it's going to add to an energy deficit if you're already missing meals or you're not eating as much food just from being busy or being stressed. This is just going to increase that energy deficit. So it's going to place more stress there. It can lower testosterone. I know the endurance community will come after me for that. Obviously, endurance training within reason, and if your recovery is up to snuff, this isn't going to have huge implications, but it can have a downstream effect on your testosterone production and other hormones that just make you feel good, make you feel motivated, make you feel energized, help you keep bone density and muscle mass high. So for me personally, and also that I do love running, I get huge enjoyment out of running, but it's also not my absolute favorite thing to do. So if you happen to be a runner, there are ways you can obviously maintain your running schedule without doing a ton of weekly mileage. However, I dropped it out. I am focusing on just basic things, morning sunlight, trying to get as much sleep as I can, making sure my macros are dialed in, making sure I'm hitting my protein and especially carbohydrates to help with those stress hormones and adequate energy intake, walking 10,000 steps a day minimum, and I'm maintaining 3 to 4 days a week of resistance training. That's always a non-negotiable for me, and it really should be in anyone's training program, no matter what their goal is. It's going to improve insulin sensitivity. Again, it's going to improve bone density from osteoblasts, from excessive loading, and no, your weighted vest or running excessive amounts of mileage won't continue to progress your bone density. It will to a degree in the beginning, but there's going to be points of diminishing returns there where we're going to need an increased external load and force on the body and skeleton over time. So it's going to help with those. It's going to maintain muscle mass. Muscle mass is way harder to earn and gain and maintain than it is to increase your VO2 max or your running capability. And I think the endurance component, I can get that back pretty easily as most everyone else. I can bring up a chart or graph that shows you how quickly, like roughly, physical qualities diminish over time. And obviously speed and power just from the neurological demand is going to be very quickly, like a week or 2 weeks. And muscle mass will be pretty quick. And endurance and actually strength, like maximal strength, will still be on like probably like the 20 to 30 day mark. However, the stimulus to, again, maintain the muscle tissue will be a different story. So 3 to 4 days of lifting, I am doing a meat and potatoes push and pull, whether it's upper or lower body day. So I'm gonna do an upper, lower, some sort of cardio. So I will still do 3 to 5 mile run on Wednesday, and then upper, lower again, and then I'll have the weekends off. I need to maintain that without sacrificing too much time and maintaining my current status. Okay, here is a look at an annual training calendar for the entire year. You'll notice it's broken up into postseason, offseason, and in-season. This particular one was obviously catered towards an athletic population. However, we can pull things away from this and apply this into our own training, even if you don't have events on the calendar. This is a great way to visualize and process your entire year of training to make sure you're continuing to progress throughout the year. So, an early off season or postseason, this could be after a stressful life event, a season of untraining or detraining, a post ultra marathon recovery, whatever you have going on where you may have lost some fitness, lost some range of motion, recovering from an injury. This is where we want to just get back to the basics. This is just a fancy way of saying we're going to cater our training to get back to the basics, learning movement again, going back down in weight, hitting repetition, hitting volume. And I will give you an example of this program in just a few seconds. So then we'll move into off season. This is really the meat and potatoes of any annual training calendar. This is where we're laying the foundation of our training for the entire year. So this is when we're working on strength, hypertrophy, all the good things that allow us to build off of and stay injury free throughout the year. During this time, usually we're working on mostly aerobic work, some alactic work, which is just really short intervals. That's not going to really stress our bodies a whole lot with excessive volume and fatigue. And then we're going to move into an in-season protocol, which is more so realizing all the gains we develop throughout the year. So this is a little bit longer for an athlete. This may be shorter for us just with these short events that we train for. However, it's a good idea to take a look at just to get an idea on what that would look like to actually peak for an event. So this is when more power endurance will come into play. Again, depending on your event, this will look different, but for an athlete, usually it was increasing rate of force development. for their particular sport. But if you're training for an ultra marathon, this could look like peaking your endurance and maintaining all that strength you built in the past phases to allow yourself to cover this much volume and weekly mileage in your training. So that's a annual training calendar. We'll move into taking a look at that early off season or remodeling phase. You'll notice we have a repetition day. This is where we're basically going with basic movement patterns and just hitting higher repetition but lower weights. So we're just reteaching, relearning ourselves the movements that we're going to end up layering on volume and intensity in the later programs. We have an isometric day. Isometrics are a great way to build some volume in your training without creating tissue damage and tissue fatigue because there's not a full contractile movement or any shearing of muscles. So this is a great way to also train your range of motion. So sitting in the bottom of a split squat, especially at a deficit, is going to help you gain that range of motion necessary to load in later phases. The eccentric concentric day, this is now focusing on tempo, so slower movements, a little less repetition, less volume, but more time under tension, and just again developing that mind body connection. We have a density circuit day. This is a great way to start to build some capacity. So find some basic movement patterns you enjoy, set a clock, and each week either increase the time incrementally or you're going to just try to complete more rounds in that given time over the weeks. So you know you're improving. In the fit day, this is a what we call EDT, escalating density training. This is a way to start to train those large movement patterns, compound lifts, and you're only going to do one rep, set a clock for 15 minutes, and you're just going to move through this slowly, one rep, one rep, one rep. Not as fast as possible. We want to chase quality, but we're just trying to build some volume in our training. Intensities are obviously really low, 50, 55, 60% of our one rep max or estimated one rep max. So that's a great program to do when life starts to get super stressful or you're just banged up from a ultra marathon or a high rocks event and you want to start to get back into some training, but you don't want to really start to load a bunch of movements and do high intensity training. Take a look at a basic advanced program and we can see here, this is a base phase. And this will be a nice way to capture how we work through 20 weeks of programming with 5 blocks laid out. So base phase, rudimentary movement patterns, the goblet squat, RDL, push up, things of that nature. Then we're going to move into build. Movements will get a little bit more complex with the front squat. We're going to start to use a little bit more structured sets and reps protocols with intensities. Still higher repetition, so intensity is not super high. We're starting with some low level mileage. This was geared towards military, so we have a ruck protocol in there, but by all means, rucking is a great way to add in some more loaded movement. Our build 2, we're going to just increase the intensity a little bit, drop the reps, and then we're going to start to peak. So reps will come down even more, intensity will go up. And then finally, an even more drop in repetitions and elevation in intensity. So let's take a look at what an advanced athlete's plan would look like. This is again base phase, starting with a little bit more complex movements and overall volume. You'll start to see they have aerobic capacity, anaerobic power capacity, high intensity continuous training. We'll move into build. Again, same idea, just a little bit more complex movements. We have heavy single leg loaded movements here. Conditioning will start to gain a little bit more volume since this was a military population. we are peaking for more of an anaerobic threshold, endurance, and basically tissue tolerance type of program. And then finally, our peak, as I mentioned, not going to look like exactly like an athletic peak for rate of force development, but rather time sets, handling more volume closer to anaerobic threshold, and accumulating more volume for testing in schools. Let me show you what this looks like in my own program. All of those Excel programs are a good way to visualize and program on the back end. Obviously, they're not as user friendly, so I like to dump them in the software program CoachRx for myself and my one on one clients. So you'll get a good idea on what this looks like and how you would see it on an app if it was programmed that way. So here I have 4 weeks of a hypertrophy program. Then I move into a strength program. So a little less hypertrophy, more geared towards heavier weights. And then I have an optional deload week. Probably won't take that, won't really need it. And then my final phase is a strength endurance and continuing with the strength work. Something just fun, has some AMRAPs in here, some kind of cross training, which is always fun to do. Again, this isn't necessarily, I don't have anything on the calendar, so I'm more so programming these chunks in qualities that I want to develop, but also manage the time of life I'm in right now. You'll see my lifestyle components I talked about earlier in the video: sleep, macros, maintenance macros right now, 10,000 steps or more a day, 30 minutes or more of sunshine a day, ideally. And this is just every day for the next 3 months. And then we'll take a look at my lifestyle trends here. This is connected to Chronometer and Garmin, so you can get a really good look at what's going on here. I've managed to maintain 11,000 steps a day in the last month. My sleep is not the best, 7 hours. Could be worse, definitely could be better. My nutrition here, and then you'll obviously see my HRV has started to take a little bit of a dip over the course of the month, but that's to be expected. And then you can even break it down into the week view. And yeah, so that's how I like to train and program throughout the year for myself. You don't have to be an athlete or an ultra marathoner or a, superstar athlete to try to break up your training into phases throughout the year. And if this looks super complex, it really doesn't need to be. Just try to zoom out and think to yourself, what can I do for the next 4 weeks that will build upon what I'm doing today? So always just have some sort of a training goal in mind, even if you don't have, like I said, a race or an event on the calendar. It just allows your body and yourself to prioritize components of your fitness all at once, to put all your energy and recovery into that, or withstand the stress and kind of deficits that you're experiencing outside of training to accommodate your training best. So have some fun with it. It's a good way to look at your year, be more proficient with your training. Reach out if you have any questions. I always love chatting about this stuff, and I'll see you in the next one.